We are entering into a huge weekend of visits. Miami Hurricanes have a big opportunity here to fill their two biggest needs and then some in the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. Happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you, and thank you so much to the everydayers who make us a part of your day, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day. We may be very busy this weekend. Miami has some important visitors coming to town in the transfer portal. The guy that we're going to start with, because if we can all agree that the Hurricanes' two biggest remaining needs, defensive tackle and wide receiver, you've got important targets at both of those positions visiting. Let's start with Tywone Malone. Yes, the Ole Miss transfer defensive tackle. He is coming to the 305. He's coming this weekend. He's going to visit Miami. He's going to get the full pitch from Big Joe Salavea, from Jason Taylor, from Mario Cristobal, from Lance Guidry and company. And we've been watching Malone very closely for the past few weeks, ever since he hit that transfer portal from Ole Miss. Now, we were a little bit worried coming out of last weekend because Malone, he had a visit to the Ohio State Buckeyes. We talked about this Sunday heading into Monday that I was going to see within the first 24 hours coming off of that Ohio State visit. Was he going to drop a verbal commitment to OSU? It never came. Gabby Urrutia from Inside the U reported earlier this week that Tywone wanted to visit Miami before making any final decision, and that's exactly what he's doing this weekend. This visit was confirmed yesterday, Wednesday, that Malone is going to be in Miami this weekend. And I'll tell you, my optimism, based on the intel I've been gathering, my optimism is growing that Miami's got a pretty good shot here with Malone. We'll see how the visit goes this weekend, but there's definitely mutual interest there. This is the type of player that Miami needs. Now, Mario Cristobal doesn't guarantee starting jobs to anyone. He's going to emphasize you've got an opportunity to compete, but he's also going to emphasize to Malone how badly he's needed, because someone of his physical profile and his run-stuffing abilities, that's what Miami needs more of, that size and that athleticism, the combination of those two things on their defensive line. 6'4", 305 pounds, Tywone Malone. I like the fact that he's got 3 years of eligibility left. Just comes off a redshirt freshman season at Ole Miss. He played in all 13 games for the Rebels last year. Rotational guy there, recording 10 tackles, a TFL, and a sack. And the interesting thing to watch with Tywone is if he does wind up at Miami, it's a pretty good chance you see him playing baseball here as well. He's a two-sport athlete. I haven't heard like any final word, and obviously we don't even know if he's coming to Miami. So all of this is hypothetical. Like I don't know if there's like a joint recruitment going on with the baseball team. Obviously we know football is recruiting him, but I can tell you that it's Malone's preference that wherever he goes, he wants to continue playing baseball in addition to football, even though football is the primary focus for him, but he wants to continue doing both. He was at a program in Ole Miss that has a great 1-2 punch of football and baseball. Miami is in a similar situation, that there's not that many college programs out there that are so prominent in both baseball and football. Miami checks off both of those boxes for him. 24/7's Grant Hughes does consider Miami to be the favorite for landing Tywone Malone. He says, and I mentioned Malone coming off that Ohio State visit last week. Grant Hughes says, unlike Josh Simmons, Malone left campus without committing to OSU. The team to watch here is Miami. Miami has been a team I've circled with Tywone Malone this entire time. He's a person who wants to continue playing baseball. The Miami baseball program is pretty good. Miami has a really big need inside at defensive tackle in a way Ohio State probably doesn't. Bingo, at least for an immediate starter. So the path to the field is a little easier at Miami, he says. I would not be shocked to see Malone on campus at Miami at some point. Well, I think that was written before he locked in his visit, so here we are. And of those two teams, Miami would probably have the inside position. So, again, folks, a lot of this is really going to come down to the path to see the field a lot. Again, Mario Cristobal will not guarantee a starting job to Tywone Malone or anybody, but if Malone does his homework and assuming he's going to like Miami's system, he's going to like what Lance Guidry and Joe Salavea and Jason Taylor have to tell him about the way his talents and his attributes would fit on Miami's defense. But when it comes to being able to compete, I don't think it would surprise anybody if Tywone Malone came to Miami, if he could find a way to be starting right next to Leonard Taylor on Miami's defensive front next year. So he's got that sort of an opportunity here. So, okay, another massive need for Miami, wide receiver. Now, this name might be a little bit new on your radars, okay, because we've thrown out so many wide receiver names in recent weeks, but I want you guys to keep your eyes on JUCO wide receiver Shemar Kirk. He's visiting Miami today through Saturday. Could he end up being this year's version of Colby Young? Remember Colby Young? Miami got him as a JUCO transfer last year, and now he's a favorite to be a starter, Colby Young. So, you can't say you don't get good receivers out of junior college. You can find very good players out of JUCO, and we'll talk about Shemar Kirk here. Now, a good friend of the show, friend of ours, Brad Tejeda, I was talking to him off the record and a little on the record, I guess, because I'm going to tell you some of what he told me. But he interviewed Kirk yesterday, and he told me that Shemar Kirk loves Miami. Shemar, 6'1", 180 pounds out of Reedley Community College. He told 24/7 Sports, who he also spoke to yesterday, he had a great conversation with Kevin Beard. So sounds like KB is putting in that work and working his magic on this one. Here's what Shemar Kirk said about KB. We got on the phone for 2 hours, he said. He's real. He's a real stand-up guy. He challenges you. He wants to see where your head is. He's for his players. He wants to do right by his players. He's a real stand-up guy. He's going to be real. He's going to tell you the real. He's not going to tell you what you want to hear. He's just going to keep it himself. He's just going to keep it real with you and straightforward. I think the number one word, like if you're going to make like a word tree or like a word cloud about Kevin Beard, I think about Chance Robinson, Miami verbal commit, all the nice things he had to say about KB. The word real comes up a lot, like real, honest. Those are a lot of the words that get thrown out there when talking about Kevin Beard. And guys, again, Shemar Kirk, he might be new on your radars. I'm telling you, watch this guy's film, watch his huddle reel, his highlights. You're going to like what you see, okay? Shemar Kirk, this is someone, I think part of what he said about, KB keeping it real, they're not going to guarantee, obviously, a starting job to this guy. And you can't because, Colby Young comes off a really good spring. Jacoby George comes off a really good spring. Now, I see Kirk. He's an outside guy, not a slot guy, which is what Miami needs. He is coming off a super productive season at Reedley College. Kirk last year averaged 19 yards per catch, 78 grabs for 1,446 yards and 15 receiving touchdowns. This is one of those guys who's obviously ready to make that jump to the Power 5. Other Power 5 schools agree because he has notable offers from Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and UCF in addition to his Miami offer. I definitely like Shemar Kirk's enthusiasm towards Miami because he got his offer from Miami yesterday and immediately locked in his travel plans to get his butt down here. Like he gets offered by Miami yesterday, and then like 5 minutes later, he's planning to visit Thursday, today through Saturday. So he's very interested in the Ute. Now, I'm not going to drop a Donno ball, at least as of yet, for Shemar Kirk. Now, again, Brad Tejeda told me that he really loves Miami and he's intrigued by the possibility. We talked about how much he likes Kevin Beard. He's never been to Miami before. He's never been on our campus before. So, I'm not going to drop any Donno balls until I hear how that visit goes for him because he's seeing everything from the indoor practice facility to the campus to meeting the coaches in person. He's seeing all of that for the first time. But obviously, you would love if Miami can hit it out of the park with that visit because similarly to defensive tackle, you can tell Shemar Kirk at wide receiver how much he's needed. You can't guarantee him a starting job, but this is the type of guy who can raise the floor and raise the ceiling of Miami's receiving core. His film reminds me quite a bit of Jacoby George with maybe a little bit of Ray Joseph's shiftiness worked into that. Jacoby George is very shifty as well. But Kirk, very smooth route runner, a lot of shiftiness, great moves in open space to make defenders miss tackles. He's a yak machine, so he can turn, a 2-yard bubble screen into a 40, 50-yard gain, but he also can run deep and catch the deep balls. And he seems to have, I don't have any 40 times on record for him. I wasn't able to find that, but on film, it looks like he's got borderline top end speed. So that's definitely something to watch out for. We'll talk about another defensive tackle visiting Miami and an offensive lineman visiting who I feel pretty good about. I feel pretty good about this episode. We're only getting started here. You guys are going to want to keep it locked right here to Locked On Canes. And if you are looking for a delicious snack, but you don't want all those sugar and calories, then you need to try the best tasting protein bar ever built. You got to try this. If you're like me and you want to make healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just the thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and they taste amazing. Seriously, they taste so amazing. You're not going to think that they're good for you. You got to try this. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real dark chocolate, and they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies, and cream. Oh, I'm making myself hungry. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. Only 130 calories, just 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at Built.com. You can still do that with our code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off. But now you can also get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club, while you can still get your specialty flavors at Built.com. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. If you're close to a Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, Brownie Batter Puff and Churro Puff. And you can thank me later because I love me some Built Bars. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. And for the everydayers, hopefully on tomorrow's episode on Friday, we're going to have some early returns for how the Shemar Kirk visit is going, because this is one I would love to have at Miami. Now, I don't know if Shemar Kirk is going to become the primary focus of Miami's wide receiver recruiting efforts, because, I think there is still some interest in Jaquai. I never know if it's Jaquai or Jaquay, but Jaquai Jackson, who I like quite a bit. And I get less optimistic by the day. Hate to say it. Hope I'm wrong about Xavier Henderson from Florida. We've been talking throughout the week about Cincinnati emerging as the favorite for him. They're trying to reunite him with his old teammate, Aumary Jones. And then another thing, I didn't know this until this morning. I was talking to somebody about Xavier Henderson, and apparently his father played for the Cincinnati Bearcats. That was news to me. I didn't know that until today. So, that might be another thing that could be, following in dad's footsteps. Could be one of those things that's pulling the ex-Florida Gator receiver more towards the Cincinnati Bearcats, even though he's a South Florida native and a Columbus High School grad. I'm not saying Miami's not still in it, but it does look like Florida could now be the favorites for him. But let's talk about another defensive tackle. Remember, not only is Tywone Malone visiting this weekend, which is a big headline maker, but the Hurricanes are getting a visit this weekend from Louisiana Tech defensive tackle Keivie Rose. He's really solid, folks. 2 years of eligibility remaining, 6'3", 303 pounds, and he's got a lot of experience. And also being a Louisiana Tech guy, you've got that Louisiana connection. Lance Guidry is all over that. If you've ever stepped foot in Louisiana, Lance Guidry is going to recruit you. That's just the way that it goes when you got that Cajun coordinator. But something that Keivie Rose has even significantly more than Tywone Malone is he's got experience. He has started 32 games for Louisiana Tech. He's appeared in 35 games last season. And he's big, 6'3", 303. 18 pressures from the interior last season, 24 tackles, 4 TFL, 2 sacks last year. So he's got very good stats, albeit not at the Power 5 level. 35 pressures in the last 2 years, 29 quarterback hurries over the past 2 seasons, according to Pro Football Focus. So It seems like there's definitely a lot of mutual interest between Keivie, Rose, and Miami. Now, if you do come out of this weekend with an opportunity to land both Rose and Malone, I'd like to think Miami could take them both. I think you've got enough of a need there for depth at defensive tackle. And, I like some of what Miami has. Obviously, Leonard Taylor, when healthy, is one of the better DTs in the country when healthy. I think Ahmad Moten's got a lot of potential. Jared Harrison Hunt, is pretty solid. Dean and Gore transferred in a little bit undersized, but I think you've got enough of a need there at defensive tackle. And I think Miami has 7 to 8 scholarships available. So, you got more needs than just defensive tackle. But I think if you did have the opportunity to take both of them, Malone and Keivie Rose, it'd be hard to say no to that if you did have the opportunity. So we'll see how this plays out. So something that is maybe not as big of a need as the others we've mentioned, but didn't we learn in the spring game that Miami could use more depth in the interior offensive line? More depth. I think you're pretty set with your starters, right? Because Javion Cohen is graded out as one of the best in the country the last couple of years at Alabama before transferring in, hasn't given up a sack. He's your starting left guard when healthy. Inez Cooper, Big Coop, is your starting right guard and a good one when healthy. But both of them were late scratches in the spring game. And, I think Miami's interior offensive line depth, it's not that great. You could inject some depth here in the form of Aumary Wiggins. Aumary Wiggins is a JUCO offensive lineman who's visiting this weekend. 6'4", 310 pounds, very big for an interior guy. Miami was his first Power 5 offer. He has also received offers since from Temple, Toledo. Not all these are Power 5 though, but these are here's Power 5 ones. Illinois, Maryland, Memphis, Temple, Toledo have offered him, among others. He was first team all conference last year at right guard, so that could be the role that he could fill. But he says Miami wants him at either center or guard, so he could be backup center behind Matt Lee, or maybe the backup right guard or backup left guard behind Inez Cooper or Javion Cohen if he were to come. And, a recruiting source I spoke to last night feels pretty optimistic about this one becoming a Cane. And you know what? If this is a guy, when it comes to evaluating players, I trust Miami to evaluate offensive linemen more than probably any other position, because Mirabal and Cristobal have an awesome track record with identifying some of the lesser scouted O-linemen, whether it be guys coming out of smaller high schools or guys coming out of smaller colleges or junior colleges. They tend to evaluate these guys better than most teams in the country. So if they like Aumary Wiggins, I like Aumary Wiggins. And so hopefully he ends up being a Cane by the end of the weekend. So ask and ye shall receive, because there's another area. We had a big conversation about this with the truth teller, Bruce Warner, on Tuesday. I think Miami could definitely use at least one transfer running back, okay? Because Henry Parrish, probably the most consistent guy. You pencil him in as your starter this year. Don Chaney, if he's healthy, can be one of the better backs in the ACC, but he's had injury troubles. Trevante Citizen is working his way back from a serious injury. That's 3 out of your 5 scholarship backs. And then your other 2 scholarship backs haven't even set foot on campus yet. Freshmen who were not early enrollees, in Mark Fletcher, who I think is going to be a stud. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. But we actually, we have to see him get in and get acclimated with his teammates. And Chris Johnson, who's going to be a weapon. But you're relying on so much youth and so many injury-prone guys. I think you could use an experienced transfer running back. And apparently Miami's interested in a couple. I don't know how we stand for these guys, but apparently there's mutual interest in a couple of transfer backs. We will talk about that when we come back here on another episode of Locked On Canes. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We are available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. And guys, I would encourage you to join our community on Subtext. So when you sign up at Subtext, I'm going to include the link below in the show description. So you're going to find that whether you're an audio listener or a YouTube viewer, you're going to see a link to join our exclusive Subtext community below. How this works is you sign up and you get SMS text updates from me right to your phone, and you can chat with me one-on-one there. And if there was ever a time to join our subtext, heading into a weekend like this, where I can't be doing shows every second of the day, right? But I can text you guys and gather intel every second of the day. So if you want to hear how some of these visits are going and where Miami stands for the Tywone Malones and the Keivie Roses and the Shemar Kirks of the world, you want to join our subtext. It's also a nice way to say thank you to the show. You can sign up for 14 days completely free, so you have nothing to lose. And then if you want to opt in at the end of 14 days, it's $4.99 a month, and we try to give you guys a lot of value, including Q&As. And again, you can text me one-on-one there all the time, and I usually send anywhere between 5 to 10 updates to the entire group per day. So if you want to join our subtext community, there's going to be a link included in the show description below. All right, running backs. I think Miami could use one. According to our pal Gabby Urrutia at Inside the U, Miami's 24/7 site, Miami has interest and hopefully mutual interest in Nebraska transfer Ajay Allen. 5'11", 185 pounds, played in 4 games as a true freshman last year before suffering a season-ending injury. So he is working his way back from something. But in the 4 games that he played in, and he was able to keep his red shirt, which is nice. So he's got 4 years of eligibility left. He had 190 yards rushing last year, 5.8 yards per carry, and scored 2 touchdowns. And guess where he's from originally? Monroe, Louisiana. So these Louisiana guys, and don't forget, not only do you have a Cajun defensive coordinator, you've got a Cajun offensive coordinator as well. So Shannon Dawson hopefully is all over this one. Tap those Louisiana roots, and Lance Guidry, if he wants to get in on like a Zoom sesh as well with those 2 guys, I hope he gets in on that as well. So you like that. And then here's a name. We haven't brought this one up in a couple of weeks because I guess I was just worried he's going to end up committing somewhere else, but that hasn't happened yet. Alton McCaskill. He is a transfer from Houston. And Houston, that's where Shannon Dawson was just the offensive coordinator. So this is one of his former players, Alton McCaskill. I haven't talked about him a whole lot in the last couple of weeks because a lot of signs have been pointing him to joining Colorado, but that hasn't happened yet. And he is, according to Gabby, going to be visiting Arizona State as well. But Gabby does say there is mutual interest between McCaskill and Miami. So McCaskill, he missed all of last season with injury, but as a freshman, he was an all ACC. He was AAC is the conference he was in Houston, rookie of the year in that conference. 961 yards, 16 rushing touchdowns as a true freshman 2 years ago. And he's got 3 years of eligibility left. He missed last season with a torn ACL, so he's working his way back from injury as well. But it seems like he's pretty much going to be ready to go, I think, by fall camp, if not even sooner than that. So hopefully that mutual interest does pay off. Other visitors coming this weekend. We haven't talked about these guys as much because I don't see linebacker as big of a need, but you do have 2 linebackers visiting this weekend. Division II Ferris State linebacker Connor Neal told Kane Sport that he's visiting today and tomorrow, Thursday and Friday. And North Texas linebacker Larry Nixon III is going to be on campus this weekend as well. And let's talk real quick, class of 2024. Miami has made the top 5 for one of the better players in the class. This goes back. We've been talking a lot of defensive tackles lately. It's been all about the trenches. IMG Academy defensive tackle Jayden Jackson has Miami in his top 5, and that's a pretty impressive list. Miami, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, and Ohio State. That's his top 5. Geez, that's a who's who. That's a murderer's row. So he's a 3-star defensive tackle, Jayden Jackson, but just based on the offer list, I could see him earning a 4th star very soon. 6'2", 300 pounds in the class of 2024. And another one of those IMG Academy guys who, he has so many friends and former teammates, 4 of them who were playing for Miami this year, 4 IMG Academy guys from the class of 2023. So hopefully they put some positive reviews for Miami in his mind. Speaking of positive reviews, we got a couple more on Apple Podcasts. And guys, I appreciate you guys so much. For those who listen to the audio version, if you can take, 30 seconds, a minute out of your day and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we like to shout you guys out when those reviews hit. So we got a new 5-star from Banksta5, who says, and this is great, if you're part of the Canes fam and don't listen to Locked On Canes, why are you even alive? I think that's a fair question. Like, what's even the point? He says, Donno provides everything you need to know about our boys and some. Love the podcast. Donno gets me through my overnight shifts. Keep up the great work. CANES Canes. I respect that overnight shift, by the way. I have become an early to bed, early to rise person, but my wife works an overnight shift. She works in the medical field, and that ain't easy. And sometimes you get those slow moments in the overnight shift. You got to have something to listen to. I'm glad I can help provide you some entertainment. We also get a 5-star review from Dat Dude 239, who says, listen, guys, the SMS subtext is so worth it. And you get that kind of personal feel from, and you get the info and keynotes before everybody. I personally love it and love Locked On Canes. Donno is the man. Thank you, that dude. And yeah, I love that he gave a good review for our subtext service. And again, if you guys want to join our subtext SMS community, I am including a link in the show notes below. Well, busy weekend coming up, as mentioned. There are probably even some players visiting this weekend that I didn't mention. So we'll talk more about it tomorrow. For those who are starting their visits today, including Shemar Kirk, we're hopefully going to have some early returns on how their visits are going to talk about tomorrow. So, yeah, we'll be back with you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.